Thinks Chinatown is in China. So
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, we're going to get started. Just a few words of introduction to Anne. I mean, probably you know already, but if I make a long introduction, it will not be in the spirit of the work. The office of Lacaton and Vassal starts, I think, in '87, which means 25 years. 25 years of work, and there's a lot of work. There are many, many projects, but probably what is polemical about all of those projects is not in every case the work is defined by what you don't do, not by what you do. And in that sense, what you choose not to do, what you choose to leave out, and sometimes even the commissions you don't accept, or the commissions you accept but then you don't do what you were asked to do, is in some ways a kind of homage to the spirit of Cedric Price and the idea that sometimes the most important design decision is to not do the commission. So you have a series of objects, can be very, very large objects or very small, or in the case of a plaza can be not an object at all, but a kind of maintenance regime, whereby instead of doing the furniture and rearrangement of the plaza, you choose only to do some maintenance program. In every case, whether very small or very large, it is what you have held yourself back from doing, almost religiously, like avoiding the temptation, has structured this work. So this work is a very, very sort of physical insistence on what is not done. And that produces in the end a particular quality of the space and of the thinking. In this sense, the work is philosophical, or at least relates to certain dimensions of philosophy, and in other ways relates to questions of ecology in terms of not using resources when you don't need to use resources, or to say it another way, the Lacaton and Vassal office prefer to kind of maximize the thinking and minimize the physical consequences of the thinking. This, of course, is a mentality that you could also imagine somewhere in the middle of the project of modern architecture, to do the most with the least. You could see it also in kind of Buckminster Fuller, again, to do the most with the least. And certainly you see it in most arguments about ecology. But what I like about, particularly like about the way you do this is that you don't do so wearing green pajamas. Here, simply you are ecological by not being stupid. So I think this is an office that really is trying very hard to not be stupid, and for that reason and that reason alone, it's just wonderful that you are here in the university, which in theory is not meant to be a reservoir of stupidity, but often is. So it would be very nice if you could just clean this room a little bit. Anne, you're very welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for your words and for your invitation. When I arrived here, I remember that in '98 I was already here for giving a lecture with some other French friends, because at the time there was an exhibition in the Guggenheim Soho, which is no more at the place, and it was really a pleasure to be here. It's really a pleasure to be here again. I will talk tonight about the question of how to reinvent from the existing and present some projects which specially deals with the existing. However, these projects are part of all our projects. You mentioned that we have done many projects, but not so many in 25 years. And the projects I will present tonight cannot be dissociated from all this cloud of projects because they form a continuous process of accumulation, addition, and reinterpretation. All these projects talk first about inhabiting, use, freedom, the value of the places, how you move in and transform them with attention and delicacy. The concept of inhabiting is a major concept for architecture, as for some projects, founders projects like this one, the first house we did in Bordeaux, social housing that we did 20 years later, or a house in the trees on the seaside, or the Palais de Tokyo in Paris, or the School of Architecture in Nantes. The concept of inhabiting in all these projects is a major concept for us in architecture. Inhabiting is about the pleasure, generosity, and freedom of occupying a space. It challenges us to think about the possibilities and the space around us and ahead. And architecture is about building multitudes of situations of usage, connected, intersected, and mobile. Designing architecture on the basis of the notion of inhabiting means constructing space from the inside and not from the outside, as in an exterior and distance act. This inverted perspective allows to resist to the idea of form and image. Buildings from inside sets down the intention of precision, attention of lightness. To come back to my topic of today, reinvent, enchant the existing, the challenges of contemporary society all seem basically to revolve around a culture of paying attention, interpreting and transforming the existing environment. The idea of virgin territory no longer exists. The point is to exalt the capacities of the existing, to look at it in a new light, not only considering that nothing works when you are looking at something which is already there. It means also that we need to learn what to see and how to see it. The existing provides the preliminary structure for all our projects, and we are strongly interested by the existing situations with all their components, their complexity, their fragility, or their exceptional characters. It is an amazing resource. We always try to extend existing situations. Transforming, using what already exists, is accurately observing from inside and as close as possible, understanding, being curious, being attentive to the places, to people, to the trees, looking positively with optimism and taking advantage of what is already there as an opportunity, as a chance, as an additional value. Adding, joining, expanding, superimposing, spanning the existing structure is always more interesting than starting from a place beforehand clean and empty. They are in themselves sources of savings and efficiency, and the project invents then a new situation, enriched of all the previous stories of all the existing layers. In architecture or urbanism, we believe in the importance of the superposition. The more a space generates multiple and combined imaginative worlds, the more stimulating to live in it seems to be, and the more it triggers new relationships. Superimposing two situations, temporality or uses, allows us to switch to a third place. It is a very interesting state and a very promising experiences. Our first experience of working in a very amazing place was a long time ago when we had to work on a very beautiful beautiful place on the seaside in the southwest of France, to build a house, holiday house, on this very beautiful place in the forest. The forest was very dense here, and we had on the plot more than 45 pine trees. The place was amazing, and when we came here, we had just the idea that it was already wonderful as it is. What to do in that case of place, and we had in mind, how can we do so that after would be not worse than before, because it was already so beautiful. So we took two decisions. The first one was to say, we will not cut any tree. We will keep all the 45 trees here, and we will raise up the house at 4 meters above the ground to protect the shape of the ground, to not to damage this very fragile sand hill, and also to take advantage of the best view that we could have by staying at 4 meters above. Then it was how to make the project so that it remains as light as these two initial ideas. So the house is is a very simple house. It's a rectangle. It's not the trees are not. There's not a scenography of the trees. They are just staying where they are, and we just took care that the construction doesn't touch the trees and take enough distance to accept the movement of the trees for a strong wind. So it's a steel construction made with very small elements, because it was important to build light, not to damage the site. So with small steel elements that we built around the trees without touching them. The house has one main orientation, to have the view on the seaside. And the face underneath the house is a glazing aluminium to reflect the light on the sea 13 meters below the top of the hill. The trees are crossing the house. And when you are on the first floor, which is the main floor of the house, inside the house, a very simple construction. It's a holiday house, and what is amazing that on that place, the land is costing so much that the cost of the construction is less than 20% of the cost of the land. So it means that it's quite nothing. The trees in the middle of the corridor, they are very old trees, more than 80 years, so we know that they may die. And when you are inside in this very large living room, you have this wonderful view on the seaside, and there is a kind of confusion between what is construction and what is the trees. Many years later, it was 2 or 3 years ago, we had to work on this site for a competition in the west of France, in the city which is on the seaside, Saint-Nazaire, where they are building very big cruise boats. And the program for this competition was to build on the place 250 in private individual houses, but it was social housing. It was for a social housing company. So when you see the place from the top, it seems to be a very usual place in the middle of urban development, with here a very big commercial shopping mall. But as I explained before, our idea is to be always inside the situation. Because when you are inside the situation, you think architecture in a different way. So we moved on the place to visit the place. And we found a very interesting place with a lot of different varieties of plants. A very beautiful place, but the plants, the vegetation here was regressive, step by step, killed by the construction that came around. If we, when we did the first sketch to see what means make 250 houses on the place, there was nothing more on the floor because it took all the place. And for us, it was quite impossible to do such a project. And for a long time, because they wanted to make an eco-neighborhood, we had a really difficult problem to know if we had to go on with this project or not. And for sure, we were thinking that if they had to make an eco-neighborhood, it was better to make it, for example, on the car parking of the shopping mall, because it was a place which was already damaged and that we could maybe restore by construction. But in a way, it was too easy to think that, and we developed our arguments, and we thought that in such a place, because we are in a city, we should be able to do everything. We should be able to inhabit in the place, to live in the place, and to make housing, but we should be able also to keep the wonderful qualities of the site. It's our work as an architect to make this not any compromise, and to make always a maximum to keep the chances, the values of a site. Some of the pictures of the place. We worked with a landscaper, a young landscaper we are working with many times, because he has a very clear sensitivity for looking at these things, and it's not one of those who are just designing landscape as they could design urban planning. And so he came to us with all these pictures and explained that because we are in a city, the relationship with the green is not the same as in the countryside, but it's possible to introduce a new relationship for a citizen, for people living in cities with the nature. Many birds, it was like a biotope. A very interesting construction of the 70s in the middle here, but totally abandoned, and they asked the permission to demolish this the construction. But this construction was interesting because it was at a right place to take the right view, the right orientation, the sun, etc. And it was a very good indication for building on the place. So the project we proposed for the competition was to say that we would not make individual houses but collective housing, because on that place for us it was not possible to take all the plot to make houses. We decided to keep this building because why should we demolish something that has some values? So for us it's important to say if it's not at the end of the life, we should keep everything we have in the hand. Then we proposed to make some car parkings at the limit of the plot where there were already some some roads and where it was possible to do it without cutting trees and so on. Then we decided to raise up the construction at 12 meters above the land. It means that we were above the top of the trees, and we could keep every tree, every plant on the side. At 9 meters above the floor, it was just a little corridor, outside corridor, linked to the floor by some staircases and sometimes a few elevators. And then the construction at 12, 15, and 80 meters above the floor. And doing that with some high points on the corners, we could build the 250 houses on the place without touching to the floor. We could keep the water flowing, everything on the place. That was the section of the project that we proposed. And the land could remain a public park, a public place where all the people of the city could go on walking and playing without disturbing the life of the construction here on the top. And this project was also the opportunity to regenerate the vegetation, because the first year it was regressive, but after 4 years it was even bigger. And in 10 to 40 years we could recover the full forest that was existing 20 years before, and what we could see on the view from the sky of 20 years ago. The construction over here you can see the pathway at 9 meters above. And the view that you could have at 12 meters for the first level of housing. This first level was made like a platform on a very light steel construction, made like big scaffoldings. It was made with dry construction. And we could use the experience of some other buildings like this one, but on floor that we are building very close to the site. It is social housing, so it was not low cost, but economical construction, and the view from the last level. So we didn't win the competition. We could expect maybe that, but it was a very interesting project to develop. And maybe we will have a second chance, because the project was with the architect who won the competition was abandoned, and maybe they have the idea to restart one day something else on this site. Problems with. A second series of what to do with the existing is projects about what to do with the modernist social housing that we have everywhere in the cities, around the city, in the suburbs. We did more than 10 years ago with a friend, Frédéric Druot, in France, a study about that, which was activated when the government in France decided to engage a very important program of urban renovation based on the demolition of many units, apartments of that period. More than 150,000 apartments were scheduled to be demolished. And we wanted to study if another alternative was possible, because we didn't agree. This this decision, and for us it was very difficult to imagine that something which was made 40 years ago, 50 years ago, which is not at the end of the life, should be so bad that we had to tear down all these places. So we started this study. We studied different neighborhoods. This one is La Courneuve, one of the first modernist neighborhoods built in the suburb of Paris. And these images of demolitions that we could see in France between 2006 to 2010. We selected some examples in the list of buildings which were scheduled to be demolished, and we wanted to study very carefully and in detail if something different could be possible than demolition and rebuild, and also to study the cost of these alternatives, given the fact that the government gave for demolishing and rebuild one apartment between 150,000 euros to 180,000 euros. So it's a very big amount. Now, in 2013, the French government has spent more than 15 billion euros to demolish 110,000 apartments and rebuild 100,000. It means that 15 billions to lose 10,000 apartments. So it was, this economical question was important, but also the social question, because even if these neighborhoods, the life is very often bad every day. There is problems of employment, education, problem of transport. It's not very interesting place to live, but when you meet people there, you can observe that even that they have their roots here, and it's a place where they are living. So it's very difficult to understand how it's possible to decide to demolish these blocks when you know then inside many families are living there, and they, in a way, they are really disturbed by the demolition. So we studied this carefully, these examples, and we started to study from the inside of the buildings. For us, the question was not, it's bad because it's big blocks or long bars or high towers. The problem is not here. For us, it was interesting to see what's the life inside, what could we do to improve the quality of living inside, and maybe the problem of the block is not a problem. At the same time, we could compare some constructions made at the same time, like this one in Boulogne-Billancourt, built by French architect Fernand Pouillon, and built with, at the same time, with the same constructive system. These constructions are very well made, and nowadays nobody thinks to demolish them because they are still in very good state. So we compared what in one case make it so bad, and in another case make it good. The architects and the place took care to all what makes a good living conditions, beautiful entrance hall. The apartments with generous space with large openings, sliding windows on balconies. When in the majority of the housing blocks in the suburbs, they were very fast built. without taking any care to the quality of housing inside, and with, like here, very small windows, when outside you have the view, you could take the light. It's a joke, but as a comparison, it's the same as the house Farnsworth, and Miss is looking at this structure. Hopefully it gave this very beautiful house, but could you imagine that? And Mr. Farnsworth would say, I'm sorry, Mrs. Farnsworth, I made a mistake. But we know that we can also come back to this situation. And it's what we wanted to look at. Starting from this situation, which is for us uncompleted, that could be possible to open the facade, to bring balconies, and to change radically the situation, and to bring this housing in a very beautiful quality. So we studied on different examples how it was possible regarding the construction systems, regarding the possibility of doing that without emptying the buildings, regarding the cost, regarding the method of working, etc., etc. Possibility of extensions when apartments are too small. And we could arrive to the conclusion that in any case, something was possible to improve radically the quality of these buildings. And in the worst case, the cost was around 50,000 to 60,000 euros. It means 1/3 of the cost of demolition and rebuild. In the same time, the government gives a lot to demolish and rebuild, and only 10,000 to 15,000 euros to refurbish these buildings, what is not sufficient to make anything else than just changing electricity or windows, but it's not changing the quality of housing. So starting from this work of changing the quality of housing, at the end, the image is radically changed by changing the facade, making additions, making extensions, giving again light, natural light inside, providing large balconies that becomes like in a private house on the floor, like a small garden, even if you are living in a collective housing. But on that basis, we published a study, a research, but this research was never discussed with the French ministries or anybody else. But we could publish it in Spain, publish in Spain. And some years later, we could take part to the competition in Paris on this building. The city hesitated to tear down and to rebuild, but for some reasons, they decided to keep the building and to make a competition for the transformation. The title of the competition was Metamorphosis of this building. This building is part of these neighborhoods built in early 70s inside the ring of Paris, so it's a very, very good situation. And all these buildings were made by a good architect, Raymond Lopez, who built a lot of housing buildings like this one, even in Germany. And this building was at quite a good quality for housing. But in the 80s, when it was time to make insulation, to save the energy for the first session of this refurbishment, they totally damaged this construction, and they put a cladding around of these different colors. They closed the balconies, the loggias. They put very small plastic windows, and they did that without taking any care of the quality of the space of the housing inside. And even if it was technically made to save the energy, it was not sufficient to last long time, and 15 years after, it was again necessary to come back and to change again, to refurbish again this building. So for the competition, we proposed two main ideas. The first one was to say that we would work first by transforming the quality of space of housing inside. It's why we propose to make these additions all around, to extend all the apartments. This crown around is 3 meters large. And the second point was that we propose to make this refurbishment without emptying the building. It means that while the families, 96 families, can stay inside the building, because it was quite difficult to find 96 apartments in the neighborhood, and many of them, they wanted to stay on the place. So we won the competition on this basis. The white is the plan of the existing building. We added also 2 new elevators to deserve all the levels better and faster. And we changed 2 small elevators here by one bigger. Inside the apartments here on that plan, we had 8 small apartments, while all the some other levels had only 4 big apartments. So the extension on the long sides is only a closable terrace. It means a kind of winter garden of 3 meters. 2 meters can be closed, and 1 meter is an additional balcony. And the green surfaces are additional livable, usable space added to the existing to create new typologies with more bedrooms. Then, because we propose to keep the people inside during the construction, the methodology of working was extremely important. So we studied this extension as prefabricated modules that could be bring on the site and put in front the facade and used as scaffoldings to take out the existing facade. We had here to take out both the facade of the 80s and the original facade, and both contains asbestos, so it was quite difficult to take out with many precautions. And here, because we had light facade, it was quite easy to take out the facade and bring these new modules made with steel construction, because it should be very light to go fast, and also the weight was important to elevate all these modules at 50 meters high. And it was a light construction for building this module, because our goal was to be less than 5 tons for this module of 7 meters by 3 meters. And then when all the modules are built, we had a new facade with an extension at the same level of the existing rooms. The new section of the building with this 3 meters on each side, and we decided to make all the same for all the apartments. And the tower remains a tower, but for us it was not a point. After the competition, we started 6 months of while we were going on studying the project, 6 months of discussion with the tenants. They were organized as an association of tenants, not only to discuss about the project, but also to discuss with the owner in terms of the rents and all what they have to discuss with the owner. But the first discussion were all together to explain the project in detail and also to reassure people that they could talk, that they could, that the process will be transparent and open, that they could take part to this process, not to make the project in our place, but to become the third partner of the construction with the inhabitant, who is the user. Then we visited all the apartments to check how it was inside, but it was also an interesting opportunity to meet all people and to have discussion, and especially for those who didn't talk so much during the discussions. And there was also, in parallel, a request made by independent persons who were not the architects and not the owner, to see exactly what was the situation of people and what would they expect as typology of apartment. And we could see after this request that 40% of persons were not at the right place. Some old couples with 2 persons had a very big apartment with 4 to 5 bedrooms. Some young families with 1 children had an apartment with only 1 bedroom. And it was at that moment an opportunity to replace everybody on the right place. And finally, we arrived to do it. And in the meanwhile, they had also discussion with the tenants to fix the new rent. Finally, there was no increase of the rent due to the fact that there are 2 parts in the rent. One part is a fix, and one part is a cost of heating, maintenance, and so on. And because we were also reducing all this second cost, the combination of both finally made so that the rent should remain the same. After the 6 months, we went on the studies. We get the contractor, and then we started to build a prototype of this module on a place which was not the place of the construction, because it was very small around. And then when all this was done, and when the methodology was very precise and detailed, we started the construction. 5 to 6 modules every day. Beforehand, we changed the facade. It took 1 day to change the facade of one apartment, to take the old one and to replace by a new one with double glass, sliding windows. And we put temporary handrails before building the modules. The modules came not as a box, because finally it was not very intelligent to transport a box, because you transport a lot of void. And it was better to transport floors and handrails, and then they built, they assemble these elements on the side. They put the windows of the winter garden on the floor, and then they elevated these modules. And 3 months later, we completed the recovery of the facade. Then we did also important works inside, such as electricity, new bathrooms, some new apartments when the family changed the apartments, but for some of them, families who stayed in their apartment, they wanted for many of them to keep everything inside, wall paintings, furniture, and so on. Doing that, and without any extra sophisticated devices, just by changing the facade, by adding this intermediate space of 2 meters that have the same effect as thick insulation, we could reduce to 40% the consumption for heating. So it's a very efficient project, and that could bring to a quite good label of saving energy of 2007 to 8. Now it should, of course, be more performant because it's becoming more and more strict. But for the time, it was good performance. And the transformation here again, starting from the extension of the interior space that provides at the end transformation of the building. The entrance, which was closed in the 80s, a new entrance. The main hall, very small behind this grids, and now comfortable hall. And these pictures before and after. This is a new facade and this small intermediate space in front. It took nearly 18 months to totally complete all the works. But we had 2 persons, one from the contractor, one from the architect's office, that every day took care to the inhabitants and provide services and provide help for any person. And now the appropriation of the people, which is very different according to the families. Some appropriate very fast, some others, they keep it very empty. This old lady of 95, we wanted to keep everything around her, so we just changed after the facade and after, but everything was kept as originally. And the apartments are now open to this wonderful view on Paris, which is, they are sure that it will stay very long because in front there is a graveyard. Another project in the same way, which is which started at the same time, but it's not still finished. We had to work on this block in a Modernist neighborhood in the same city of this previous project in the trees. And we had to work on this 40 apartments block, which was not working very well, and it was empty at 20%, while all the others are totally full up. These 4 big blocks have been also emptied, and now they are demolished. So we started to work on the same way as the tower in Paris. Here the construction was very strict with concrete tunnels, so it was quite impossible to imagine to change something inside because we didn't know exactly how the construction was made. So the project was to extend here again without changing anything inside the blocks. The blocks contains 4 apartments, a little bit small, but not so bad, with a very small, in the middle, very small staircase. And according to all the inhabitants, the main problem was this very small bathroom with less than 3 square meters. So we proposed first to change the place of the bathroom and to arrange it in the small bedroom, and to build an additional construction to replace the lost bedroom, and link this bedroom to the inside of the apartment by a winter garden and a balcony. That would make at the end this extra space of 33 square meters, including a big bathroom, a new bedroom, and a winter garden and balcony. So we propose first to make that all around this building, but also because the floor, it's not the same situation than in Paris, because here the constructions, even if you have the feeling that it's very dense inside, it's very low density on floor. All this neighborhood was less than 9% of footprint on the floor. So we were thinking that there was a potential to propose a kind of densification of the place, and we proposed to add 2 wings to the existing building to provide 40 new apartments on this car parking era, and taking this opportunity to introduce new entrance, new staircase, and to make a totally new building starting from the existing. And on the basis, a new car parking with on top green terrace. That comes at the end this proposition, which was accepted by the owner. This was interesting to propose this densification. Also to just some pictures of proposed transformation. But just to comment, that's a proposition as a goal to not only on that building, but to extend this densification to all the buildings of the blocks, and to densify the edges of this blocks, this plot, in order to keep a park in the middle, but all the construction could be made over the car parkings and extend, not, of course, the existing dwellings, but create new dwellings. And this project was an opportunity for the owner, who belongs all this land, to build on a place 200 new apartments on a plot which is already belongs to him, so he doesn't have to pay anything for the plot. All the networks are already here, so you can connect to the networks without having to make any new networks. This place is very close to the city center, very well deserved, so that the proposition on the first building was a part of a project that should have been developed in all this era. The project took quite a long time because we had some difficulties to have permission to not to build, but to with I don't know if you have that in here, but we have some firms who control the construction, and because this construction system was not very used for building housing, so we had a long time to make it going on and to develop more studies than we should have done. But now it's going on. You can see here there's additions. It's nearly a dry construction made with steel frames and prefabricated slabs made with steel and mineral wool and concrete. And step by step, the building is circled by this new construction until it totally disappears in the new construction. The extensions in front, the windows of the existing, and these new openings, as when before it was small windows, small doors. Construction with new wings here, this southwest wing. The new additions. And inside this construction with only columns, and the partitions are totally independent of the structure, which allows a kind of flexibility to organize the partition and the typologies of housing. This densification is it's a very important project for us, following the project of the tower in Paris, because it's another step of this thinking of reusing, and which is for us very promising, because there are so many eras like that which are quite empty, but which is needed to introduce new constructions, not only for housing, but also for mixing activities, for working, for public equipment. Unfortunately, the director of the ownership changed in between, and now the new one has no intention to develop the project in the neighborhood. And it seems that it will remain only one example, but in a way it's important to develop this kind of project, even if the first is not going to the end, because maybe the second or the third will go further, and it's important to get this experience of this project. And it's interesting to see that all these situations are multiple in the cities. Here it's a study that we did in Bordeaux the last 2 years. The question was how to develop in the city in the next 6 years, 5 to 6 years, 50,000 new apartments. And our reply was to say, we don't need to open new territories to the construction, because in the city, as it is, there are only enough place to build this 50,000 new housing, including the transformation of the existing. And we say that every time you build one new housing to a very good condition, we should refurbish and transform an existing dwelling to bring it to the same conditions as the new. So it's an amazing amount of work for the architect in the future to work in that direction. And to finish my presentation, another kind of project, we're dealing with the existing. It's much more art and cultural project. This one is already an old project, but it's for us interesting. It's in Vienna, in the Museums Quartier. It's a very big era, what they have developed 10 years ago. New big museum, and refurbished all the era. And we were asked by the Architecture Centrum, which takes place on the place, to make a coffee shop close to their exhibition rooms. And this is the place for the Architecture Centrum in this very strict courtyard. It's a military architecture. There were stables here in the past. And we have to make this coffee shop inside this rectangular shape under the vaults. We didn't have to take care to the facade, which were provided by the very big project, but just to make a coffee shop inside. So facing this very strict architecture where even the sky was framed in between these walls, we proposed just to make something on the walls like a light blue sky evoking far countries and exotic countries, and we propose to put ceramics on the tiles on these walls coming from Turkey. We went to Turkey to meet people who produce the tiles. And also we worked with young Turkish artists because as architects we were not able at all to design this tiling. And we discussed with her and we asked her to design a kind of pattern which was 10 times bigger than the designs that you find on a normal square, on a normal tile. So we did all this, she did all this design, starting from our design of the geometry of the vault. And then they produced the tiles, and finally that came this beautiful vault with these big flowers, and it seems that it was already there for a very long time. Even in the kitchen, there are tiles in the ceiling because the kitchen was designed after. We made this partition after because first it was an open kitchen, but after the cooker preferred to separate the kitchen, so we built the wall after. Another important project for us in Paris is the Palais de Tokyo. Palais de Tokyo is this construction which was built in 1937 for the Universal Exhibition in Paris. And at the time it was not built for a pavilion, it was a museum divided in two wings. One wing belongs to the government and the other wing belongs to the city of Paris, and both were a museum for modern art when it was built. So that's pictures from the origin with all these sculptures, the basin. Inside this the museum, it's a part of the government, which in 1975 all this collection went to the Centre Pompidou when it was built, and this place began a museum for photography and cinema until the early 90s when the government decided to make an important project of refurbishment to install a museum for the cinema. They made international competition of architecture. They selected an architect who started to work, Franck Amouten. They started the construction during 52 weeks, 1 year, and they have just started to demolish and to open floors, to demolish stairs and all the partitions, all the ceilings, when the government decided to stop the project. And to let the place as it was. So it stops in 96, as far as I remember. It stayed like that during 3 years, and in 99, the Ministry of Culture decided to put here a temporary site for young creation. They did a competition, and it was made for, it's a project that we expected for 5 to 10 years with a very low budget of 3 million euro, 26,000 square meters on 4 levels. And we found the situation as it is here on these pictures, at the same time fascinating, but also amazing, and sometimes we were really afraid of the place because we didn't know exactly which were the problems after all these demolitions. So we proposed for this project to make first all the most important works that allowed to open again this building to the public and to exhibitions. It means that they had a lot of damage to repair, to reinforce the structure, to build again all the columns for the rainwater, built new stairs where they, in the staircase where they were demolished, built new elevators, and we say that it was not a problem for us to do that because the architecture was already very interesting and architecture was already there, and we didn't find the need or the desire to add any architecture inside, just to allow that this architecture could again be used and open to the artist and to the public. So 3 million euros is not so much when you have to work on such a place, but we worked step by step, starting from the most important, and then we say that if when we have spent the 3 millions, maybe we don't have anything else to make the paintings, but finally it was not the problem. And we started the works on this basis. It was 1 year of works. The goal was to open it again to the public and to exhibitions. And it's what we did in 2002. This place was very successful with millions of visitors coming from everywhere. But we just arranged 1 level for exhibition because we didn't have enough money to open more than this 1 level. And we did on the ground floor storage and technical rooms. Here was the first restaurant that's changed later. And this project of an artist on the side, one side of the building, which is gardens for inhabitants, and it's a project for an artist. They divided the place in 10 small gardens, which were given to inhabitants, not of the neighborhood, because in the neighborhood there are many rich people, and they don't need to, and they don't want to have any garden. But from some workers of the construction, they came here to make the garden. It was very amazing to see that in this neighborhood. And during 8 years, between 2002 and 2010, many kind of different exhibitions on that place. Sometimes with the open sky and natural light. Sometimes in the dark. But all the time the place showed that it was a very interesting place to make all these exhibitions. It's open from 12 to 12 in the night. At the beginning there were no no keepers of the exhibition, only young people who welcome visitors and made commented visits. And so it was a very nice atmosphere, very open. And many people who normally don't go to this kind of places because it's sometimes too close and they don't know what they will see inside, they don't know if they like. They are not used to see contemporary artworks, but here it was so open that many people came and stayed and come back with families on the Sundays. And then in 2010, because they decided that it was no more a temporary place, they decided to make definitive project, and also because we were close to the election for the presidency, and you know that presidents like to open new museums before the election, and finally the place, because it was not so expensive to make something inside, the President Sarkozy decided to say, okay, it's my favorite project, and we must make something in this building so that it should open in April 2012, 1 month before the election. So everybody ran, and in very fast time they organized the competition. And in June 2012, of course, we applied to the competition because for us it was very interesting to come back and to make a second phase on all these amazing places which were remaining in the building. It was remaining more than 16,000 square meters empty without any function, but we had already prepared this place by reinforcing the columns, the floors, and it was ready to go on. So we applied to the competition, and for sure our knowledge of the place and this very strict conditions of short time made that we were selected to go on for the second phase in the same spirit than the first one. So we started the study. We did the study in 6 months, and then the construction, and it took 9 months to make the construction, and in April 2012 it was ready to be opened by the president. Unfortunately, he was not elected, so but the place is open, and it makes happy many visitors. So we had amazing place in the ground floor, which is like a basement, but in the program, these places were dedicated for storage, but we proposed not to make storage, but to extend exhibition on the place, because we found it interesting to have different variety of ambiences, from the full natural light to the very dark spaces in the basement. So we proposed to here the budget was higher. It was 13 millions of euros, which was not a lot for 16,000 square meters. But we proposed to work everywhere and to open every space to the public, from the ground floor to the top. At the time, as you explained, for this project, our reference was the Fun Palace as an architecture of freedom, of atmosphere, of quality of uses, and especially this sentence of Cedric Price explaining this project. I don't remember exactly, but it's you can come from everywhere, enter, moving on top, looking to the others doing something. So it's for us it was this example of maximum freedom that you can give to a place not to say to the people you must use it as it is, but just to say we give you a kind of tool with maximum of possibilities and some tools to use it. And the interest is sometimes to come back to the maximum potential to redefine every time a new use of the place. And the only thing that important thing that we did is this big stair that links all the levels, because there was a monumental stair, but which was just linking 2 levels, and now this one is also linking the ground floor, so it's easy to move and have different ways to move on the place. And some pictures after the opening. Now they have a big amount of square meters to make exhibitions. The first exhibition was part of the Paris, I don't know the word in English, triennale. Triennale. So there was many people coming for the opening, but now they are starting the new program, and the last exhibition opened in 2 weeks ago is very interesting, but it's also very pleasant to have the possibility to move very slowly to visit all these different places, to stop here and to stay a while, to be sometimes in the dark, but sometimes under the transparent ceiling, to have the view to outside, to the exterior space, towards this through this high windows. So this place has a very high potential. And from the origin, it was a museum, and it makes really a difference. It was not a factory. It was a museum, and the way of the light coming inside, all the walls to exhibit, it's a very, very interesting place. We have refurbished all the transparent roofs, so now it seems that it's okay for a long time to stay here. And now going in the basement, this auditorium, which was made in '37, but opened just one day because there were no security exits. So we did exits, and now it can be open as a small music room. And some dark rooms with special artworks. As this one is a kind of cavern made with les fils, those, and basement. This new stair that allows to cross all the levels coming from the entrance, and allows to go up to the 4th level with all this transparent roof, and here again some artworks. And just the last, and I promise it is the last. You talked about this project in your presentation, and it's a very small project we had to do in more than 15 years ago in the city of Bordeaux. Neumeier decided to launch an important program of embellishment of the public square, and we had to work on this one, which is a very small square, which is retired from the city center. We didn't know this place, and we had no opportunity to cross here because it's a little bit a part of all the main streets. And we had 4 months to propose a project to embellish this square. And finally, at the question, if I want to make this square more beautiful, what could I do? We developed many arguments to say that the square was already beautiful. The shape is a triangle with streets around. There are beautiful houses around. There are trees all around the square. There are benches, which are not new benches, but they are in good state, and they are similar as all benches that you can find in public gardens. The floor is made with gravel. And finally, 4 months later, we came back, and as a project, we proposed not to do anything and just to let the place as it is, just making some works of maintenance for refurbishing the floor. But it's important also to understand that doing nothing can be also architecture. Thank you.
Questions? Not asking a question is not. Yes.
Thanks. I'm curious where your sort of value system or mode of thinking in this way came from. If it started with early projects, or if at a certain point in your career you arrived at this value system. Does that make sense?
For this project,
No, just in general, it seems like that sort of value has accumulated through a number of projects. And I'm just curious where that stems from.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure to understand. You are curious to know how do we arrive to make this project?
Yeah, where this idea of doing as little as possible. Where was this idea coming from?
I think it's not so easy to explain, because we are not sure to know always why we are doing that. But if I remember that our story, as many of you, we studied architecture in schools in France. It's like here we studied a quite conventional way of studying architecture. But after the studies, we had an opportunity, a chance to spend many months and years in North Africa, in Niger, and I'm sure that it was a time to change our mind radically, because at the beginning it was very poor country, and there was nothing, no buildings, no architecture, and for a while we were thinking that we were just here to spend time, and we will make architecture later when we come back to France. But day after day, your mind is changing slightly, and one day you ask you some question, and facing to a man who is every day making a kind of hut to just with branches and the codes to make shadow on floor, and then he can work, and step by step you start to think that this man is making something that changes a bad situation for a good one, and you arrive to think that architecture is that. It's not doing forms, it's not, but just thinking to needs, to a situation, to a complexity, to put together many parameters and to make a project with that. So it's much more larger and much more interesting than just making forms, and even if at the end there is a form, of course. But I think that time opened us to a very radical change, and also opened a great freedom in our mind.
I think you have partly answered my question, but I'll phrase it again. Thank you. When first of all, I think the work is incredible. I would have a dozen of questions about fireproofing and the cycle of capital. You know, I know why people don't want to keep those buildings. They make more money by demolishing them and rebuilding them. Construction companies and so on. No, the question is much more architectural and in a way almost an art question. Your first project you show us is the house in the trees, and the last project, well, this one, yes, but the Palais de Tokyo, which is equally as poetic. In other words, you pretend to be doing the right thing, like when you explain how you can extend the apartments and you can save a building and pay much of it. But in reality, and I would say that's why I liked your answer to the last question, you're doing far more. You're actually doing a very provocative, very transgressive move by showing that with very, very little you can have maximum effect. And so my question is, taking the first project and the last project, the Palais de Tokyo, as, how could I say, almost signals to a larger strategy, which is not simply meat and potatoes, which is really trying to have a cultural and, poetic effect. How do you see that developing now that you have, a fair amount of experience in the strategies that one can use in the real world?
I think you are right, and of course I explain one part of the work, and but it's more complex than that. And some you know that as architects that when you are making projects, it's very difficult to explain everything. Something are intuitions, and intuition is very important. You don't have to avoid that. And many times the authors talk better of your work than yourself. So this question of poetry, of pleasure, is we assume it totally, and because it's part of the pleasure of the architecture, of the way of working. What is difficult to explain is, but in a way it's quite clear. It's all this effort about construction, about the strategy, about the economy, is to make the architecture the more free as possible for the others. So, because we think that the most we can do for an architecture is to give the maximum of possibilities for those who are living in your building, living in a very large sense, not only housing. So the question of pleasure, of poetry, of course, is very important, and also we defend also the idea that as architects we can have also our part in projects that we don't have to explain, because it's our thing. When we put flowers in buildings, when we put these tiles on the vaults, there is no explanation. It's just because we want to do that. And besides that, we solved very carefully and with precision all the problems, technical problems. We try to work with economy, and we try to be very serious in all this way, but also because it opens for us a large way for our own freedom.
Thank you.
I will have the question of related to your Bordeaux plan, where you have many different houses and blocks. The issue is whether the large-scale project that you are proposing or that you are showing, my question is if that is an architectural project if that is an urban planning project, and if those two things are different or are the same thing. Because I would be very interested in knowing how that can become a housing program. But I don't know if that exists, and if that has to exist, is something that your office would do, or something some different profession would do.
This question is very interesting, because maybe I didn't explain that very well, but I explained that we like to start from the inside of a situation to make the project at the scale of people, but it doesn't refuse the large scale. But in the opposite, we think that this work of a small scale and the addition of many small scales should be the starting point of urban planning, and not the opposite. We defend this idea that the architecture should be the beginning of urban planning, and not the opposite. Because nowadays, and for a long time, there is first urban planners. They make big composition with networks, with urban shape, and then step by step you arrive to the small scale, and then you say, okay, the architects can make beautiful buildings inside. But we defend the idea that this model is not working anymore, and that we should change this way of thinking urban planning. Also because we are always working in cities already established, already consolidated, and we are not working anymore on in our countries. I don't know how it is in China, but in our countries we are always working in countries where we are to work on many places to take care of the existing, not with extreme respect, but just because it has interest and that you can make something with that. And this project of like the high block with the extension, for us is not just a clever example of refurbishment. It's the first stone of improving the quality of life in the city for all individuals, because for us we have the feeling that it's unavoidable condition to make the city of the future and to make the city better, to talk about densification. So the question is, architecture and urbanism different? I say no, that's the same.
Maybe that was the last question.
I have a question about the way you represent your projects photographically. I noticed that, I mean, I don't know if the title Enchanting the Existing is yours or if it's GSAPP's, but the photos, something interesting that I noticed about them is that they are very hyper-real. Like the shadows are very, like all the dark spots are very, very defined and visible. And in general, the photos, like, they seem kind of magical. And for the kind of claims that are made about doing as little as possible to the existing and bringing out these new relationships with things that already exist by doing very little, I think, I mean, I wouldn't call it cheating, of course, but I would say that the photos are playing a very big role in the representation of these projects as something very minimal, bringing out these kind of magical spaces where all these magical things happen, and like the 95-year-old lady has like this beautiful interior now. I don't know if you revisited old photos and did something to them, or if the projects that I noticed that are all recent. How does photography, how intentional was the photographic editing, or is it just a photographer that you found that is is working for you?
The photographer is working for us for a very long time, and since we made the first house, it's the first picture I show with this big greenhouse, and it was we were not planned to meet, but he came to Bordeaux because at the time there was a big exhibition on Jean Nouvel in Bordeaux, and we were just starting our practice, and we just finished his house. And I don't know how, and I don't remember how, but he came to visit this house, and he started to make pictures. And to be honest, the first pictures he did, we didn't like, because they were totally empty. He made the place clean, and we became friends, and then we asked him to change his way of doing pictures for us, and we say that especially if we are working on making pictures of housing, because what we are saying is that our goal is to extend the space for living, to make it as big as possible, to make it double, to allow the freedom of users, to allow appropriation. And for us, it's very interesting to see what people are doing with this freedom. And one of the main questions is, when you are an architect, where you should stop to make something, and when you stop to let the place to the following. And it's very important that the pictures should show that, and should show that this architecture is made to be alive, and not to make just to show how the project is interesting. And so now he makes this kind of project, but it's the pictures you see, that if you are visiting yourself, the houses, you will see the same. I don't know, if, Enrique, if you have visited these pictures, but it's exactly as it is, and Palais de Tokyo is the same, and it's not manipulated.
So it's kind of a delicate point to end, whether the magic is actually there or not. But I think I hope it's really clear to you the respect and affection for the work in this room.
Thank you.